And welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook. Mostly, you can find us on iTunes and Spotify, guys. That's generally where most of our audience comes from. But on a global scale, there's a lot of options out there for you guys, depending on what country you're in. So I appreciate all the follows, all the likes. We had 453 new followers in one day the other day, which was quite an impressive number. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. That was kind of cool actually. And uh so a little blown away. That's the first time that's happened in almost 8 years of doing this. We are on year eight, I believe, eight or seven. I'll have to look at it. But either way, we're going pretty hard. We've still got an episode out every week, are managing to do that. So we're doing pretty good here. So I appreciate the support, the love. I appreciate the love and support for the guests. Like I said before, we don't charge anything for this. We cover all the costs here. The guests come on here for free and donate their time and their story. So the least you guys can do in the audience is like, share, comment on the episodes, and go to their Instagram and their Facebooks and follow these entrepreneurs and their stories and be rooting for them. And if you're in their geographical area, go try it, taste it, or order it online if you can. It's a consumer packaged goods brand like we're talking about today. So with that being said, I have Brian Youngblood here, living in Boston, Massachusetts, with his hummus brand Prest. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing great. Boston has been warming up. Finally, it's been a long
Yeah,
winter, but we're getting into spring is moving quickly and seems to be moving into summer. So,
yeah. I
uh,
just
wow.
go ahead. Go ahead. I had a conversation about this. I grew up in the DC area, Washington, DC area, just north of it on a horse farm, about 25 miles north. And the difference between your winter and our winter was significant, even though it's only an 8-hour drive. An 8-hour drive in Colorado might not matter that much unless you're going into the mountains, because that's where I am now. But on the East Coast, 8 hours drive matters significantly from a weather standpoint.
Yeah, totally. I've been amazed at the wind here is just crazy. Like,
Yeah, because you're from South Carolina originally. So,
yeah, I'm from South Carolina, so it's been a big shock getting used to it here. But beautiful, and the summer is fantastic. So I can't wait for that.
yeah, Boston's pretty awesome. I have to admit, I've spent a lot of time there. I like it. The food's good. It's
Yeah.
got great food. A lot of Italians up there, so I know where to go. And but no, from a food standpoint on a global scale, I love what's going on in Boston. So let's talk about your story a little bit. You're in
Yeah.
graduate school doing your MBA, I believe. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and
So I'm about to graduate in just a few weeks at Harvard Business School,
nice.
getting my MBA. Full-time program throughout the 2 years, and it's been a great time to kind of reflect on my career up to this point and think about where my passions lie and where I want to move from here and spend the rest of my career. So it's been a really good time for experimentation, for learning, and for working on something new.
Yeah, the one of the things I want to talk about this just because not it's atypical for us as entrepreneurs to have MBAs sometimes, at least in food, because it's so grassroots. I do have an MBA from University of North Carolina. Just so everyone's aware. I did it later in life. I was in my 30s, 32 to 35-ish period. When I had the time and the businesses were moving pretty good. At least I thought they were. And, but from an let's talk about this a little bit because I think it's important. You're also building a business, you're in school. I wanna anchor this for everyone. We're gonna come back and talk about the MBA part, but first we're gonna go talk about little Brian. Let's talk about you as a kid in South Carolina, family upbringing, sort of why business school, the entrepreneurial spirit. I wanna anchor it because sometimes it comes not just in a whim, it's something that's brought to us over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a really fun childhood. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina called Hartsville. Um, and I have two older brothers. So being the youngest brother, there's plenty that comes along with that I think probably builds into the
You have 2 older brothers.
entrepreneurial spirit a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we grew up kind of a bit out in the country, so there weren't a ton of kids around. Grew up on a lake called Lake Robinson, and we just spent all of our time outdoors doing stuff, building stuff. We would make like tree forts, and we had this thing called the digital blue where we would shoot videos and just make little movies with each other. And yeah, so I feel like the three of us just were always out doing something, and kind of making our own fun. Um, and going out on the lake all the time, spending time with family, friends, etc. So it was just like a very community focused upbringing, um, and a lot of time spent outdoors and just having fun. So I that was the start of things. Um, my parents moved us there from Cincinnati. We were all born in Cincinnati. Moved to South Carolina when I was about 2. And yeah, our childhood, one, I think it was shaped a lot by living out on the lake, and then seeing that my dad actually, when I was in about middle school, he came up with an idea. Well, me and him kind of came up with this idea on the lake, although he claims it was his, which is we came up with a pool noodle that has a koozie on the end of it. And I used it for an invention fair project at school. This was in like, I think 6th grade. And so we made this prototype. It was a pool noodle. It had a bungee cord and a koozie on the end of it. And you would just kind of pull it out and drink for me, like Coca-Cola, I guess. And for him and his buddies, probably beers on the lake. And so that was an idea that we started working on, and he actually then leaned into it. And he's got an old friend from Cincinnati that was really into it, wanted to spend time on it. So he actually left his job and committed full time to working on this pool noodle brand. My dad kept his job, but worked on it all the time. And they spent a few years building that. So they were shooting plastic parts out of Cincinnati. They had a mechanical engineer from University of Cincinnati, I think, that designed some of the components. And they did just so many scrappy things. We had a close friend who's a photographer who did all the like product photography. Um, and then we went to wakeboard shows and trade shows and all these things, for those few like very formative years for me. Um, and so I just found that super exciting. Like you're just always out on the road, you're talking to customers, um, and it's a lot of fun. And you just see the joy on people's faces when they see something new. There were a lot of learnings out of that, and it did end up closing down after a few years. They got into some Bass Pro Shops, they got into some WalMarts. They definitely did a great job getting it out there. And then um, I think there were just some things that went wrong with um, really like trying to do more, like do too much too quickly and try new things, when probably focus was what was required a little bit. So I think that was just like a really good learning experience for me and something that's kind of sat with me. Um, but it also gave me this itch, like doing that, spending time with my brothers. We would do like woodworking, all this other stuff. I was always just kind of tinkering growing up. And so I think I had this itch to build things. And through that experience with, it was called the Brutal, um, wanted to actually own a product and get it out there. So growing up more, like going through high school, I got really into cooking. I think that was a journey of its own. In middle school, I had some issues with like my weight and developed an eating disorder and went through that. It was a challenging period, but it also gave me a different view on my relationship with food, um, and nutrition. And so going through high school, I got really into uh, caring about my nutrition, cooking food for myself, cooking food for my family, and then I just became kind of addicted to cooking. Um, so actually, for a few years there, I thought I wanted to be a chef and spent a lot of time making bread. I started brewing kombucha even for a while, but ultimately, I then went to undergrad, decided I'm going to do mechanical engineering. I think it was partly this need to tinker and also knowing mechanical engineering is a difficult degree. It's something that will develop other aspects of myself that I care about, leadership. It'll just challenge me to take on hard problems and enable me to build things. So I studied mechanical engineering. I did a lot of research throughout undergrad, and then did a lot of internships, um, and ultimately ended up working in manufacturing operations out of undergrad. Um, so worked at Apple, and then moved on to a startup after that. But I think kind of the way that happened for me was, I don't know. We grew up in this small town. It was a very very small community, very supportive, but also in a part of the state where like public school funding is not phenomenal, and so opportunities weren't always there. And I had a difficult few years with trying to like find my footing throughout middle school and high school. I started at the school where both of my older brothers went before me. Suffered from like I had some issues with bullying through middle school. I ended up switching schools for a year. Kind of needed a break and a reset. Um, Found a really supportive community there. Switched schools again, and then once I felt kind of more comfortable, into high school, and then I my oldest brother went to a magnet school for the last 2 years of high school. So I thought I should follow him. That's a great opportunity. As the youngest brother, you kind of always just want to do everything your older brothers are doing, and that just doesn't always work out for you. So I decided, yes, I'll go to this residential magnet school too, and hopefully it'll be a great opportunity. And I did that, realized, wow, this really isn't for me. Like um, it was weird living in a residential school in high school and being away from my community and my friends. I was super involved in my church growing up. I was really involved in a local band at the local college, and I realized I was getting pulled away from those things living in this residential high school, and was really bummed to be away um, from that community. So I ended up switching schools again, went to a different one um, that was new and ended up also being a great experience. But just that like kind of turmoil that was maybe self-imposed of going from school to school, and I'm sure it was difficult on my parents. That also I think helped shape a lot in my ability to like feel comfortable around new people, um, get to know the people around me, and respect them and engage with them. So yeah, that's just some of the background of me.
So let's talk about undergrad. You go into undergrad. What do you do as you go to school now? I mean, where do you focus? Is business sort of anchored from your childhood now at this point where you're 100% determined to go in that direction?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I was figuring out my path always, and I think I'm still doing that. Like
Yeah.
I went into undergrad. I got into the University of South Carolina, their honors college. So lived there my first year of school. It's really great. They've got a residential college that has about 500 students. Um, and you get super close with this community. Like my freshman year, I lived on the hall with some of the people that are still my closest friends to this day. Went to one of their weddings about a month ago. But being around this group was just, I think that was an incredible community to kind of start my college experience.
Yeah.
I had friends that I would go to the gym with regularly, so got into the mode of going to the gym every day, and that was really helpful with just kind of like grounding me every day. I We would just sit and brainstorm and like chat for hours, and I think that was very helpful for just forming like our opinions about the world, our opinions about the things that matter to us and what we want to work on. And then as I got into school, I just wanted to do more and more. So I got involved pretty early on in research um, through the mechanical engineering curriculum. So there was an aerospace research center on campus that I started working with, and I did that kind of through the first 2 years of college, where all of the research was centered around manufacturing. So we were doing research around carbon fiber composite manufacturing for airplanes, and Boeing is based in Charleston, or there's a Boeing facility in Charleston. So it was all research for them and figuring out how do you automate the process of making like the fuselage out of carbon fiber. So I did that for a couple of years, and I think that got me really into this like direction of manufacturing as a career path. And so as I did that, I then got internships related to it. My first internship was at Pratt and Whitney, which is a jet engine manufacturer that's based in Connecticut. So I went there for a summer, worked within that organization. I realized it's a big, very old company, and moved a little slower than I think I probably wanted in long term in my career. So learned a lot, but decided I would need to go somewhere a little faster paced than this. So after that, I was able to get an internship at Tesla, which was quite the opposite and was really fun. This was at the time when the Model 3 was the hot new thing and was had a lot of problems. And so working there at that time meant solving problems all the time, learning really fast. Um, there was even one day where like the factory power went out, and it was madness. And I saw Elon walking around on the floor, not looking very pleased with the situation. So that was
Yeah.
just like quite the switch. Um, and yeah, so worked at Tesla for like 7 months in an internship. And
I mean, state of the art processes, state of the art company, everything's being pushed to the extreme of scientific possibilities at that point, just from a vehicle, I would think. So you're learning life at the very edge of business, from a company that was leading very much leading edge, at least at that time, if not still at this time.
yeah, true. And there are huge positives, huge negatives in that. Like it's a growing growing culture the whole way through, but also like being an incredibly innovative company. So I was there, I think, when there were plenty of growing pains where, they had hired so many people that have a ton of depth of experience within automotive and other adjacent industries. And then Tesla as a company is kind of figuring out like, what is our culture going to be long term. And I think there were loads of clashes in that when I was there. So that was also something I learned about just like organizational behavior and how it forms in a fast moving company. And from that experience, I think I learned that I wanted to be somewhere that was innovative, was like moving quickly, but also had kind of found its footing on what its culture was going to be. So that's why after Tesla, I decided to go to Apple to work full time because it seemed like kind of the best place to learn early in my career. There are a lot of there are a lot of like management philosophies that are put into place, really good management structures, and I think a lot to learn. So that was kind of how I decided to make the move. Tesla then onto Apple.
Let's talk about Apple. Let's talk about like you're in a very technology based space at this point. Like even for a car company, it's technology based, very innovative, very um what I would call a different world from food investing, for sure. Lot more money comes into that, a lot more leverage, a lot more compared to trying to raise money for food, for example, or food product.
Mhm.
Let's talk about this a little bit from Apple and where your life sort of goes because you're still very leading edge in life. Um, to go back to something hummus, let's just talk about this. So, I want to anchor this for the audience as we go on the NBA thing. We're talking about a food that's one of the most ancient foods around at this point, at least from history, since we don't know exactly since Alexandria was burned and all the books in it way back in the day. But we know that hummus has been around a long time. So let's talk about this. You're talking about state of the art, working, innovative at the edge of of technology really right now. So go on.
Yeah, I think for one, even though I've worked in these companies that get a lot of capital coming into them and they're working on things that are very high tech, I was always in roles that were very much ops heavy and and required a lot of care in how you are managing budgets and you're really learning to be really scrappy and use resources um in a really responsible way. So I was never in parts of the organization that were focused on R&D and taking big swings. It was always really, really focused on making improvements to existing processes, making designs simpler, making everything simpler so that the company is going to hum along and get to profitability um, better. And so,
Um, I want to anchor this because I think it's important. Sorry to interrupt, but I think it's really important what you said. And I want to say this from an entrepreneur standpoint also, or, I get this thing sometimes about having money and what does having money look like in a person that's supposed to, what happens when they earn their way as an entrepreneur and what they're supposed to be like. And they're supposed to be overly generous and giving and kind and not worried about money. Here's the thing that I'm going to say, unless you were in finance or a legal where you earn your money based off of relationships where it's a little different, where schmoozing and everything's a part of it. Yes, executives and businesses and playing golf, yes, there's the schmoozing. But as an entrepreneur, there's less of it. And here's why. Because an entrepreneur has to start out with making use of what he has at his fingertips. That may be his parents' piece of land, that may be his friend's minivan, and his other friend's restaurant that's closed 12 hours at night where he's cooking out of it when it's closed to make his consumer packaged good just to anchor it for everyone. But the thing about being an entrepreneur and the thing about gaining wealth from it is you learn to leverage what you have always. So no matter how big or how much wealth you gain overall, you're always leveraging it, including money. So it's never in your hands technically because you're always figuring out how to use what you have to the best of your ability, every single thing. And when you truly get into an entrepreneur mindset, nothing is wasted, even when you buy it for yourself. It's always an opportunity for entertaining someone. Oh, this is my house. This is where I have to bring clients every once in a while. Your mind starts working that way as an entrepreneur. Okay. I want to anchor that because we just talked about big or small or whatever. But the mindset is always this: what can I take in scarcity and do something with it and give it value. Okay. One of the things that I love about DoorDash as a model for the people working there is that it teaches you that here's an opportunity. Take the resource you have, your car, you need to make more or do something better with your life. We're going to give you the ability to have an unlimited schedule. You could work 24/7, 7 days a week if you want to, because you're a contract employee to DoorDash. Okay. What is that teaching? That means I got to use what I have, that which is also time, money, asset, car, myself manual labor running back and forth to the restaurant to go build something. Why do I base it off that? Because I don't think we understand what that mindset is and how we leverage that to that little skill right there is what we're talking about that makes entrepreneurs. Okay. It's not how much I know or how much business I know. Those things help in building it or scaling the business, but actually be willing to look around you and not waste money and use what you have.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people miss sometimes in the lessons on like what makes entrepreneurship work for people is that I had a professor share this last year here that entrepreneurship is really uh, managing with the resources that are out of your control. And that's a piece that I even struggle to embrace, that a good entrepreneur is really good at using resources that are completely out of their control and leveraging them. And you do that through relationships. You do that through um, how you negotiate with others, how you even build a strategy for your business. And I do think it has shaped a lot of how I've decided to build Prest and why I think like my learnings from my experience thus far definitely do kind of show in the way that I built the company so far and how I want to continue to do that. Um, so yeah, happy to share more there as well.
No, let's go into from Apple, where do you go from there? Because we sort of
Mhm.
anchored some stuff in there. Let's talk about the journey now from there to where we are in the food space. So,
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. So yeah, from Apple, I realized well, one, a little bit of helpful context. Um, Out of undergrad, I applied to my MBA. So in my senior year of college, I was applying to deferred admission programs for MBA programs. And so that meant that going into my career, I did know that I had been accepted into HBS. So that kind of changed the way I thought about learning in the next few years. Um,
but
so I
most
knew,
people don't go to Harvard Business School. We just, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Don't go to business school to be an entrepreneur per se. They go to be an
yeah,
executive. So I just want to anchor that a little bit because I got a lot of that as well. What is the point? I've already made it. Why go back to school? I already have a path. I was already an entrepreneur by then. But
yeah,
go
and I think the business schools are going through this, are having this challenge today where they are trying to bring in the brightest people, and a lot of those people do want to start businesses, and so it's hard when your history is around building general managers to then also infusing the mindset around founding. And so I think GSD has done this over the years. HBS is a lot more focused on this, trying to enable entrepreneurs to find resources here, learn a lot, work on their ventures while in school. So that's definitely been a focus of the school in the past few years. Um, but yeah, so I think it was a unique situation, and one that I'm thankful for, that I knew coming out of undergrad that I would have this opportunity, and it is something I never expected to get. Like if you asked me as a kid if I would have the ability to go to Harvard Business School, I would think absolutely not. Like there's no chance that I'm going to get to that point. Um, and so when I did get accepted, I thought at the time I'm doing this no matter what. It doesn't seem like a question to me because the experiences I would get through it, the new friends, new connections, new learnings, like all of that would just be I'm certain they will do something for my life and um and change my perspective in ways that I wouldn't even understand. So I think I from the beginning thought I'm going to go to business school kind of no matter what. Um and in those few years in between I was really focused on one enabling myself to do that. Business school is expensive, so I wanted um to work in jobs that would help me afford to go here. And then also places where I would learn a lot. So Apple, it was both of those. It was a great experience, like huge amounts of learning, because the organization pushes you to do so much. And then out of Apple, I wanted to learn about startups more. I had never worked in a startup. I thought I want to either found something or I want to work in early stage, exciting startups that are working in innovative spaces. But I also want to have impact in my career. And that comes out of a lot of experiences through childhood too, of loving nature, spending time in nature, and cherishing it, and having a lot of mentors through childhood that had impacts on me who were very community focused. And so I realized like there's just there's so much power in combining impact with your career. And so yeah, I wanted to make that shift.
Yeah,
And
and I think that this is important just, again, to anchor for everyone. Y We only get so much energy in a day. Like, some of us can learn how to increase that capacity for more energy throughout the day. Exercise, we were just talking about mental capacity, spiritual capacity, all these things help. Things like 75 Hard, which we discussed, the program 75 Hard by Andy Frisella, all help build that capacity, I would say, in ways. But I think what's important is that once we're using it, life becomes a lot better as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't say easier. I won't say simpler. I wouldn't say less complicated, emotional, whatever. I'm not going to say that, but I would say better in that we can get a lot farther, a lot faster when our family, our business, our personal aspirations, our goals, all those type of things in our family's goals and aspirations are all lined up in one linear, or what I call one thread, and we weave with that thread the blanket of our life. Because as an entrepreneur, uh, listen, no matter what we do or anyone says to us, our minds are thinking about our businesses 24/7. We can't turn it off, even though we try and we meditate and we go to sound paces, or if you're Christian, you can work on um, transfiguration, things like that. No matter what, we're always in that space. We're guiding to how to make our business better because our business supports our families, which also supports our employees, which also supports their families, which also supports vendors, which also creates jobs for the farms if you're in food, so on and so forth. I could keep going. So in that mindset, at least from a food standpoint, our impact is so a wave, or a stone we throw into a pool, and there's multiple layers going out, or waves or ripples, if you will, that we have to what Brian just said was very important, because the more we align that together, that our goal in life, or the trajectory we're setting our life on, that retirement is not an end. Like, we're just bypassing retirement. This is trajectory our life is on until the day we die. As an entrepreneur, you go a lot further. And guess what? You're going to lose businesses in the meantime. You're going to lose business partners. You might lose relationships. That's part of it, guys. But this one thing that I will tell you, that this gift that you've been given, which is merely the spirit inside of you saying, I need to go create for the world. I got this gift, like the gift I was been given, I've been created. Now that I've been created, I need to go create and give back to the world. God created the tree, we created the furniture, just so everyone's aware of this. The furniture wasn't here when we got here. And so, that being said, as an entrepreneur, when we think about our long-term impact on our communities, on society, 1,000 years down the road, or our businesses potentially, you take a different perspective of the way you build your business. You certainly, as an entrepreneur, live a healthier life, a better life. And it's not easier. It's not less stressful. It's not less harmful. People still die. People still have things happen. You still get sued. You still may go bankrupt. Pick yourself back up. But as an entrepreneur, because we're dedicated to our path, nothing gets in our way. Okay. That's important for everyone to understand, because we can't just bounce from job to job to job at some point anymore once we become an entrepreneur. Okay. Sorry, it's all yours, Brian. I just wanted to anchor that for everyone.
no, yeah, I agree, and I appreciate that very much. So yeah, I think that's what led me to make the jump from Apple to a startup. And the startup I went to, it's called Mill. They make a home composter. and are really focused on mitigating food waste. So while I was there, I learned so much more about how harmful food waste is and the methane emissions associated with it. And it's crazy that we throw away in the U.S. a third of the food that we produce. Um, and Mill was really focused on one of the pieces of that waste. So they were focused on like once the food has made it to the consumer, and the consumer has used it or forgotten about it and let it spoil, then what do you do with it? Is there another life for that food? And so the composter really dried out the food into these food grounds, which can then be used to feed animals. So really trying to build into the um, circular food system, and make sure that food does not go to a landfill, but gets used for something meaningful. Um, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. So I think like coming out of my time at Mill, I learned a couple things. One, that I really want to actually go further than just working at a startup. I want to have decision making um, power, or more than I had there. I want to be able to like shape the direction of what I'm working on. I want to own the decisions around the business. So I think that was an important learning. And then the other one was that there's so many problems within these systems that need solving, and Mill, they're very well funded and will go far in having impact in the space, but there's still a lot to fix. And I was looking out of that experience a little upstream and realized like there are ways that we consume or foods that are presented to us that make it difficult for us to avoid waste. Um, and as I came back to school and started buying food that would work for me living in dorms, one of the big things I would eat all the time is packaged hummus, because you can just keep it in the fridge, whip it out, have it with some carrots. Um, However, it has this problem where every time you open it, the clock starts and it starts to go bad. Bacteria just dives right in. And so within 4 or 5 days, you're unsure if it's good or not. And it starts to get a smell, and it might even have some mold growing. And so here you are with a bunch of partially eaten things of hummus that you throw away. And the more I talk to other people, I realize like they also have this problem where they open their fridge and they're like, oh, there are my 4 or 5 partially eaten things of hummus that I didn't get through, and now I'm of course not even going to try.
Yeah,
Um,
that's definitely my
and
refrigerator, actually, now that we talk,
yeah,
because I love it with vegetables, but I need the variety and the flavor, so
yeah, I agree. And so it's a bummer. And like you think about extending that out, that's a lot of food waste, and it's a lot of plastic waste also, because hummus containers, they're not really recyclable, especially because they have all this like wet residue that makes them less likely to get recycled. So it just felt like a product that hadn't really been rethought in grocery stores, and I thought there might be a way to reduce the negative impacts that you could have on the environment with a product like hummus, and also like just make it fit better to the consumer consumption needs. So if you're only going to eat a little bit of hummus at a time, you should be able to only make a little bit of hummus at a time and make it really easy to do. Um, so yeah, those were kind of some of the leading things that led me to like start thinking about hummus, as well as not really loving many of the store bought brands. I was bummed whenever I would buy in stores that like when you compare to what you can make homemade or what you can get from a restaurant, the store bought brands just don't really seem to live up to it. And I think that's because of a few things. It's not using extra virgin olive oil in the product. It's adding a lot of preservatives to make it last longer on the shelf. And all these things kind of add up and make the store bought hummus that we have today. So I thought about that a lot when thinking of formulating Prest. I wanted to allow consumers to use the oil that they want, and you add it fresh when you are mixing it together. So that flavor really comes through and you get a much fresher tasting product because of it. Um, so yeah, I think I kind of started noodling on this idea. I bought a few ingredients and just started like testing and trying it out. I bought a couple of the competitors that are out in the space that make hiker hummuses, which are these also powdered versions of hummus. And as I tried them, I realized like, oh, these are clearly made to be really convenient, but they don't taste as good or as similar to a homemade hummus. Um, and so that's where it started. I think I also had some things through school that helped build my interest in the space. This was in my first semester of business school. I was going to loads of talks across consumer, across venture capital, climate tech, all these different areas that I thought I might be interested in. And in going to those talks, I started seeing patterns in the speakers that would come, in the founders of these businesses, and realized who I think I am more similar to, who I want to emulate in my career. And it was the folks from the CPG businesses, especially working in food, because there's just a like heightened sense of responsibility I think people feel when they're making something that impacts your nutrition, impacts the food system, impacts the environment in such a potent way. And I could just see that in the founders, and I think it made me really excited about the space. And as I leaned in more, I would go to trade shows and start reaching out to people and realize that founders working in food are just some of the most lovely people. Like they are always willing to help. Everyone knows it's hard. And so no one expects anything from you in return. They just want to help and they want to see it succeed. And it's just been amazing to see that over time and how it builds. Um, and then how I've been able to start even now when the business is like brand new. I'm able to try to help where I can with other people interested in getting in the space and share with them what I'm learning. So I don't know. It just seems like such a
Yeah, I'm going to
collaborative
say
and
this
wonderful.
actually. I agree with you. I think the food space is probably the most generous, kind, humble space outside corporately. I think once you get into the entrepreneur space and you find if you like kindness and you're not as cutthroat as you think entrepreneurs should be, or and there are industries out there, there's less competition in those industries. Food, there's probably 500 jelly companies just in the state of Georgia alone, I would bet. And I'm exaggerating, but there's enough room for it. Let me just tell you, we all eat multiple times, many times a day. The human population's growing, animal population's growing as it should, and we should keep working on food so we can leave this planet. Not to go back to a Tesla reference, but SpaceX and Blue Origin, those guys are on to something. We are to create beyond what's just in front of us. And then one more thing that I want to anchor for everyone. When you're looking for something to do and you're thinking about food, it's usually something right in front of you. Like I said, hummus is an old thing, and I'm going to ask a question based on this as we continue. But it's an old thing, so people tend to not look at it as, oh, someone's already doing it. It's been around for a long time. What can we do to make it better? It's always that makes it better. Ice cream, same thing. Ice cream gets better. People figure out different ways, different types. You have Italian ice cream, we have Italian ice, we have all sorts of options, sorbets, whatever. So don't limit yourself, but generally the things right in front of you and it's something you're already generally passionate about or voicing about. I would say if it's something at the grocery store that's missing or you liked and it's not there anymore, it's probably something to do with that. Like the spirit's working through us in these ways and it's creating us an opportunity to identify a problem. And it's not easy to find a solution. We're probably going to get into that because Brian's building right now as we're talking about it. But let's talk about this question first. What makes hummus hummus and not just a general dip? What are the things that have to be used to make it a hummus per se to be classified as a hummus? Because I think that's an important factor because there are rules and there are standards we've given to food as human beings. Food hasn't given it to itself We've given it to as human beings to help categorize it. And within that category and categorization, it allows us to have the rules through that standardization to be entrepreneurs. Okay. I've said this before on other podcasts. The most brilliant thing America did during the American Revolution is switch to a different system of measurement so they didn't have to guard their borders anymore. They just knew that stuff coming in metrics was blah blah blah, and the stuff going out in international was theirs. And so it didn't have a question of what needed to be taxed and what was foreign and what wasn't. It was standardized. Okay. Even though you're like, well, if it was standardized, it should have been the same. No, we use standardization to identify a difference because we didn't have border control in a country we didn't even know how big was yet. Okay. So that's why. So standardization is the same in business. What the United States did when they did that is they put down standard operating procedures to an unmanageable amount of resources, and they made it manageable in the best way they could. And everyone thinks it's war and George Washington and everything. No, first thing you have to do always is figure out an economic standardization and then fit your business into that standardization. What are the procedures by which my business runs, by which I make my recipes, by which I clean up every day? And the more you do that, then everyone else in your business as you scale does those exact same standard operating procedures. You don't have to go around. You just train them on these. They become accountable to these when they sign up as an employee. And over here becomes everything for you. And it's less work for everyone. So I just want to emphasize that for everyone. Anyway, let's go on here. Let's talk about hummus and then let's go from there.
Yeah, I think I should first start by saying I do not have Middle Eastern roots, so I don't have a tie to the product in that way. But I do have a lot of respect and admiration for it. I think one, because it is made from one of the most sustainable ingredients on the planet with chickpeas, where they are nitrogen fixing and do so much for the health of the soil. So my admiration for it is one, like from a nutrition point of view. I think it tastes phenomenal, and it does so much for the world. But what makes hummus hummus is the word literally means chickpeas. So it is a creamy dip that is majority chickpea based. And there are different ways of preparing it, but chickpeas are always in it. Some folks add tahini in different quantities, and then there's generally garlic and lemon, cumin, a mix of other spices and things. Um, but there are many different ways of preparing it and nuances to the product. So when I was developing it, I took those into account and tried to make the product in different ways. I tried to see if I could infuse tahini in a powdered form as well. However, tahini is very much oil based, and so it cannot be powderized easily. And so I ultimately decided to not have tahini in the base mix for Prest. And I didn't realize this at the time, but that actually opened up the product to so many new people that previously couldn't really eat hummus. Anyone with sesame allergies probably has not had hummus, or if they have, they had to make it homemade. And so I became really excited that this version actually is a lot more accessible to folks. And I've got a lot of friends who have sesame allergies who have been excited to finally try it, and now they are maybe some of the biggest fans of Prest. And so I've loved seeing that come about as well.
Let's talk about advertising name. You're in business school while you're doing this, obviously. So you've got a lot of resources. So you're coming up with a name, you're coming up with techniques, you're coming up with the procedures and the equipment to make the product. Like you're compiling a lot while going to school at the same time. But let's dive into this: the name, the product, the marketing, the advertising, because you have resources at your fingertips while doing it, which I think is important. If anyone wants to start a business, why not do it when you have all the educational resources at your fingertips, honestly? But go on.
Yeah. I will say it's a little funny. I don't think Harvard Business School knows what to do with the hummus business, um, because it's kind of out of the norm and definitely out of the area of excitement for investment right now,
Yeah,
um, which is AI. So it's definitely sort of zigging from everyone working in AI. So the resources that I found most helpful through my experience here have been mainly relationship based with uh, getting connected to alumni who have uh, started CPG brands or worked in the food system or worked in retailers, things like that, where I can just absorb and absorb and absorb and hear from them and start to make opinions of my own around like how I should build the business in a way that's going to align with my values and align with the way I want to grow it. So I think that has been the most impactful takeaway. And some of the things I learned from people were one, building a brand like this is really, really hard no matter what. So one thing you should probably try to do is get as much off of your direct plate as possible. So that's something I've aimed to do through the development process of Prest. So I definitely did not take that into to heart in the beginning because I formulated the product out of my dorm room. I This is again maybe coming out of my lived experience and previous work experiences. I just I did in the nitty gritty of things. So I bought some pieces of equipment and started just cooking over and over again, and trying to make the product myself. And so I formulated it. Um, I met a food scientist at a food happy hour in Boston, and we chatted back and forth about some ideas around the specifics of formulation. So that was really helpful. And then I went back to work in making the product. And then from there, I needed to figure out sourcing and how I would scale it up. And so my options were I could scale up the exact manufacturing process that I was using, which was to actually soak, boil, dehydrate, and grind chickpeas, which would mean building out a facility myself because I reached out to a bunch of co manufacturers and nobody really has that procedure. And so it would take some level of investment, no matter what, to make that happen. Um, and that seems like not a direction I was wanting to go in. Since it's a very unproven product, I wanted to be able to get to market easier. So I spent months searching for other options and going to trade shows. And I actually found a supplier that makes a fully boiled chickpea flour and other similar products, and ended up trying their product, mixing it in with all of the other ingredients I'd been working with, and it worked great. Um, and so I decided, awesome, I can source from them. Then it simplifies my production a lot more, and the production really becomes blending all of the ingredients and packaging it. Um, so that was one learning that it just takes time to find the right fit for you. And so the whole time I was still trying the product in the background, testing it on consumers, but I was also trying to find a way to simplify. Um, and then from there, I needed to do branding. So for branding, I asked a few agencies for pricing, and it was going to be somewhere around $13,000 to $15,000 for the whole brand package. And I hadn't raised any money, wasn't wanting to put that much into it at that point. And so I again got kind of scrappy with how I was looking for folks. I emailed professors, which I hope no one just does this and floods their inbox. So we'll see what happens. But I emailed design school professors at all of the design schools around Boston and asked if they had any students that were interested in branding that might want to work with me to develop the brand. And one got back to me and connected me with one of their students who was about to graduate. And I met with her, talked about what I was working on. She's actually from Georgia, so very nearby. We connected in that way too, and she was awesome. So we decided to start working together. It was a win-win for both of us because she was trying to build out her portfolio and get um, experience to then go work at a branding agency. And then for me, it meant, learning alongside someone and building stuff that we really like. So it kept me a lot closer to the branding process, and came out with what Prest looks like now. So I was thrilled with that. Um, and then yeah, the other aspects of growing it have been getting involved in different communities to get their advice. So I joined Startup CPG, which is a Slack channel with a lot of founders and other folks working in CPG. I've joined some other communities and I've just asked over and over again for help. So I found my co-manufacturer through Startup CPG, um, and have gotten other connections through there as well. So that,
Are you
yeah, that
using a co-packer to pack your product right now, or are you packing it yourself?
my co-packer.
Okay.
So my co-packer is packing product, and they also do fulfillment. So I really manage sourcing. Um, I source, all the packaging that they use for fulfillment, include some, stickers and personalized items as well. Um, but it's been really nice to be able to work with them to do that because then my focus can be a lot more on new flavor development when I want to work on that, and then just trying to sell and trying to get the products into more people's hands. So um, yeah, that was again from a learning from one of the alumni I talked to. That was just like you have to think about where your skill set is going to play for you and like what you are not going to provide that much value by doing. Um, and when you're starting a brand like this, you are balancing a lot of things. Like I am still making every bit of content that goes on Instagram and TikTok. I'm running the website, trying to get wholesale accounts, doing flavor development. There are so many things that you have to tackle that it would be really hard to also be up late at night packing orders and shipping them out. So I don't know, it's just something that I realized that in order for me to be able to do this long term and like keep the energy going, you have to make some trade-offs and I'm giving some margin away by not doing that myself. But on the flip side, it means I can focus on
Listen,
other things.
I think there's like from a CPG standpoint, just from an audience, since I used to co-pack for others and have had co-packing done for me as well, on very large scales, including for hospital chains. People don't think about it, but yes, hospitals, you package goods and you sell it to them for on large scale as well. And the grocery stores and even restaurants, restaurant chains bottle their own sauces and stuff and then ship them. So from that standpoint, the thing that I think from everyone's point of view, okay, you need to find others out there and at least go look at co-packers. If you're determined to do it yourself and you're immovable, I understand you're going to do it yourself, but I do recommend using other individuals' resources and capacity to build your brand. You can always go build your own brand later or go build your own facility later because you may outgrow that co-packer. Your goal should be this. Okay, just so I give everyone the proper consumer packaged goods roadmap. Stop packaging your own food. I get it. You want control and it's part of who you are. You're going to have to give up a little bit of quality, maybe, or certain things here and there. That's okay. Set the standard so high that the bumping down a little bit for co-packing is then just a bump down. That's what people don't realize. Well, it's always a bump down. Well, then just set the bar higher. It's that easy. And that's business, guys. Set the bar higher. If you know someone's gonna lowball you a little bit, make a higher offer.
I think it,
So the thing about it is your goal should 100% be when I outgrow my current manufacturer, I will go do it myself. You're setting the trajectory, you're setting your budget, you're setting how you should do your costs, and you're also setting the standard of once I get to that point and I go out on my own, I can expand my product line even more. Maybe based off a chickpea flour, maybe based off a hummus. I don't know, but there's a lot of variations in just the 2 products I just said to really gain ground there, okay? So, that's why for the audience, you don't there's certain rules and standards and guidelines. How you get there is the education and what builds your brand and your story. But there's certain things that universally are true. What's universally true? You're gonna have to put the work in. Okay. That's universally true. No one has ever built a meaningful brand without putting the work in. Okay. And even the people that get paid $1 billion, like Dave's Hot Chicken, they still put the work in. Someone had to put the work in, the recipes, the going to the fairs, the carnivals, the whatever they did before they even had a store that no one talks about, okay? It's just a matter of how much time you're willing to put in, and sometimes people think, "Oh, it happened this fast, so it should happen that fast with me." Well, what's their time to asset to scarcity ratio, okay? What are they using in scarcity and how fast, particularly time? Because the more you use, yes, as an entrepreneur, you're gonna need to spend more time, sorry, versus someone else. So don't compare yourself to someone else because there's how many different inputs. The goal to being an entrepreneur is just keep moving in a direction. What is that direction in CPG? In my opinion, if I were you and I were consulting for you and you were paying me the money to do it, aim to co-pack. And once you've outgrown the co-packer, do it yourself. And if at that point you still don't want to do it, find a bigger co-packer and learn from them. It's that easy. There's no need to make it more complicated. There's plenty of entrepreneurs and businessmen and women out there that have built co-packers that have the same entrepreneurial mindset as you do out there. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's also it's hard to do this, but finding a co-packer that will work with your requirements is also a wonderful unlock. Like, I am not making quality trade-offs because I am sourcing the ingredients myself and ensuring that that is maintained early on, and that sourcing process will shift to the co-packer over time. But I didn't out the gate say, "Here's my recipe. We can change all the ingredients uh, based on what you maybe find that's easier to source, and then go from there." So for me, it's been this step process where I'm saying, yes, we can outsource the blending process because that there's really no quality impact in doing so. The main thing that I care most about is where are we sourcing ingredients from, and so I am still very close to that. Um, and then the other thing too was utilizing what resources you have. So I've got some friends who have thought about starting CPG brands, and their family owns a restaurant. Um, and and so they're thinking, oh, we could cook out of the kitchen and make the product out of there. And that's great because you already have all of the capacity built in and you're not paying extra for that space. So yes, I think it makes total sense to manufacture your own product when that is the situation. Or if you live in a house and you have space in your house and you can use your kitchen or your garage or whatever space to do it, that's also great. I think in how I started the brand and where I'm at in my life, it just wouldn't work that way. So I kind of needed to go the direction of finding a partner to work with. So I think just knowing like what your options are and where you have the ability to actually build is important.
We don't have a lot of time left, Brian. I would love for you to come back on the show actually, because I want to talk more business with you. If we could do a part two, that would be awesome. I would enjoy that because I do have more questions, but we don't have a lot of time left. I want to make sure that we dive into the future. Where are you right now? Things like that that we're just not going to get to today because like I said, I want to give you guys as much time. Everyone in the audience, I try to give the entrepreneurs as much time and then take out the education. And when there's a lot of educational material, I would like to keep it going if that's cool with you, Brian. If we could just set up another time, same like you used last time. But will you tell everyone where they can find you, where they can reach out to you, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all that type of stuff? Because I think you have a very strong product. I know you've been written in magazines and have some articles, I think maybe about you out there as well that you could mention just because that's important that this is not just some whim of a product. This is well thought out strategically in scarcity. And it was executed just for the audience in a time. Okay, not rushed, not done. He did his homework, he did his research. He looked to others before he went and launched. Yes, can we learn the plane as we're flying it? Of course, but we should generally know what the plane looks like if we're going to throw it off a cliff and build it as we're flying. Because you don't want to jump off a cliff and not know what an airplane looks like or how to build one, because you are still having to build it in the air. Okay, that's just for everyone for the analogy, because I get that at me a lot. But you still need to know what an airplane looks like. Okay, so anyway, go ahead, Brian. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience, I am absolutely still building the plane as I'm flying. I think product, I was like, I need this to be phenomenal. I want people to love the hummus. But even the packaging, I'm going to have to rework some things on the second generation packaging that I'll make for the next version that I produce. So there are going to be some changes always. But yeah, so you can find Prest at eatprest.com. That's EATPREST.com. We're for sale on TikTok Shop at Prest Hummus. And then our Instagram is also Prest Hummus. Yeah, we were featured in Entrepreneur Magazine. So there's a story kind of about the background of how I built the business while in business school. So you can read more there as well.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate your time, Brian, because I think there's a lot of people that struggle with this. There's the expectation of a higher education, but the desire to be an entrepreneur or your own free spirit. And but you also or you've got this thing in your head, I still need to fall back on my education maybe because that's what my parents told me. I get it, okay? Because we're part of that. Like while my mom was very entrepreneurial and my father became entrepreneurial later, much more entrepreneurial later, but my grandparents were all entrepreneurial. The My dad still is very corporate mindset, Harvard business as well. Very corporate, very large billion-dollar plus companies mindset in the way we ran things in corporately. It is important. And from him, I always needed a fallback. You know, I always needed that to rest on so I could go join the corporate world in case things didn't work out as an entrepreneur. The problem is I don't fit in the corporate world much anymore. And when you're used to like making your own rules and learning that the boundaries of the world are usually man-made and you as an entrepreneur you don't really need to follow them unless they're laws and jail time. Most of it's just humans, not given to us by nature or God. You can build a lot as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of boundaries that are self-inflicted. There's a lot of boundaries out there that are inflicted by other humans that are your guidelines to act within. Those are the unmanageable ones. And values of your company and perception of value and all that. That's again, it depends on what it is. All you can do every day is put the work in. And then this is my last thing for everyone, just because we're talking about startups. Always make sure while you're starting up a company that you either have the resources available, you're getting investor, or you're also working in something else. Maybe even it's related to what you're working in, but there generally needs to be income or something coming in to build a business. Or if you're in school, make sure you have income coming in to go to school and that, and then build the business at the same time. I think grad school is the perfect time to build businesses. I built quite a few while I was in grad school, already running companies because I was getting the information, because I had the resources around me, because I had the colleagues around me as well. VP or CFO of CVS or whatever I could get my hands on. These guys were running big, huge, multi-billion dollar companies. And then on my other hand, I was dealing with co-packing and entrepreneur in the podcast later on in life where I got to learn from smaller entrepreneurs and learn that angle as well. So a lot of it, guys, I didn't learn on my own. I experienced farming and life and entrepreneurship and business from my parents and being around my dad at his offices from a very young age. Uh, but I still had to be around others that built me, that iron sharpened iron, type thing that allowed me. So what did school teach me? One of the most important things is I needed those around me. I needed the professors. I needed a particular professor to open up my mind to the theories that I talk about where business is actually better served as an entrepreneur when my core values align with both my business and my family and the direction that I'm going in morally and ethically, quote unquote, my North Star is all on the same parallel. Okay. I marry that way. I raise my kids that way. I do everything that way. And I'm giving them all the skills to be entrepreneurial, at least to choose themselves. Because the most important thing I agree in this world is to be self sufficient. It's to, can I make it on my own? Can I if worst case scenario is, can I take care of my family? Can I take care of the people around me? Do I have enough knowledge of food? So might as well be in the food business to grow my own food in case that really happened. So these are the things that I'm talking about. For me, I didn't want to be in food. My family was in food. I despised it. Just so everyone knows, I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted legal, real estate, and marine biology were these weird things I was, even as being an entrepreneur as a kid and starting my own businesses. What happened was as I got older and I got involved in family businesses and started my own businesses, and then I got to grad school, I realized the most important thing for me in the way that I believe in breaking bread and community and relationships and family and the direction of everything that I believed in, that it was exactly this. Food was the thing that was my North Star. It was the thing that catapulted me so I could grow other humans. It provided the vehicle for money to do other things with it, donations, build things, build the podcast, whatever I could do. And it provided a ability for me to have a voice. Okay. Because at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs because we have to inspire others to go do the same thing. And we have to inspire the world around us to break loose somewhat of human law and be more citizens of the world and less citizens of a country and citizens of man-made rules. Okay? And why is that important? Entrepreneurs are responsible for things like democracy. Entrepreneurs are the people that rebelled against governments that formed their own countries. Why? Freedom lies in the ability to realize that if we can truly govern ourselves, then we don't need someone else to govern us. Okay? That's what an entrepreneur does. We govern ourselves in a way that makes things successful. We run our own companies. We build our own rules. We build our own HR departments. We build our own financial structures. We build our own relationships. A business is its own entity that we live in. An entrepreneur is just merely the founding citizen of the business. Okay. So when we start to think about that way, and then we're training citizens of the world as our business, not citizens of a country, not citizens of whatever, then our businesses become better. Yes, should we focus on the product? Yeah. But when our North Star is we're going to grow the humans who then grow our business, that changes things as you grow. Yes, you need to grow your product first, guys. But then when the time comes, grow the humans who are going to grow your product and let go so much of growing the product yourself, just managing it and keeping an eye on it and just growing the humans. But growing the humans is the most important part. And that's the thing and I want to do, especially on this episode, because I believe so much in what Brian's doing. I believe so much in what he's doing for the food world. And guess what? I believe there are a few hummus companies out there, but I believe that we need to look at things differently. I believe there's always room for a shakeup, and I believe you guys should try his product. Okay. So that's where I'm going to leave it with everyone. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for listening in. One more time, Brian, where can they find you?
Thank you. Yes. So eatprest.com, or you can find us on TikTok shop at Prest Hummus.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we're out.